Welcome to Cooperative Voice. I'm Duane Simpson, President and CEO of the National Council of Farmer Cooperatives. Running a farmer co-op means navigating real pressure, from global markets and evolving public policy to building a skilled workforce and adopting new technology, all while continuing to meet expectations of the farmer owners you serve. Every month on this show, I sit down with cooperative leaders, policymakers, and experts who are shaping the business and policy environment of America's farmer-owned co-ops. These are the conversations co-op executives and board members need to be having, and we're going to be having them. My guest today is Dr. Keri Jacobs, Executive Director of the Graduate Institute of Cooperative Leadership at the University of Missouri, where she holds the Partridge Chair in Cooperative Leadership. Keri works directly with cooperative boards and executives on governance, finance, and strategic planning. Today, we're talking about what it actually takes to lead a farmer cooperative well, and why director education is no longer optional. Keri, welcome to Cooperative Voice.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Hey, we're glad to have you. Now, you built your entire career around helping cooperative leaders grow. How did you get into this business? What brought you to the cooperative space?
I'll start by saying it started when I was a faculty member at Iowa State in the Department of Economics. My background is as an ag economist. That's what my doctorate is in. And there was an opportunity when I was at Iowa State. They had a vacancy come up, someone retired who did work in the state of Iowa with agricultural cooperatives, with governance training, basic director training, working with boards, being a spokesperson in the industry. And that person had an extension and outreach component and also a teaching. And so that happened when I was at Iowa State, I believe in 2013, I moved into that role and fell in love with it. I'm a farm girl from Eastern Iowa. I knew about cooperatives, but I will tell you, I had a lot of learning to do. And that has continued. I had the opportunity to join the University of Missouri in this position and working through GICL, Graduate Institute of Cooperative Leadership. And it's my professional career, but it's also a passion project for me. I get to work with farmers and farmer cooperatives every day, and I just love that.
So obviously there's something about the cooperative model that pulls you in here. What is it specifically that makes it special? There's a lot of places in agriculture you can work. What is it about the cooperative model?
I think it's special to me because, so as an economist, I hope this doesn't get too long-winded, but as an economist, I believe in how markets work. I believe in free markets. I believe in capitalism. I'm defined perhaps a little differently than maybe some people view capitalism today. But what I really like about cooperatives, whether it's in agriculture or in finance or consumer, what I like about that model is that the person who is most vested in whatever business we're talking about, healthcare, grocery store, in this case, in marketing farmers' products and getting products onto the farm, they benefit the most. So whatever their business, their livelihood is tied to, they get to benefit through that from the cooperative model in a capitalistic economy. And so I don't have to own an Apple phone to invest in Apple and get the benefits of the business. But imagine if Apple shared its profits back with those who were using its services and products. And that's what the cooperative model is doing. So it's the participatory and the ability to control and own and benefit from the things that largely affect their livelihood and their lives.
Yeah, Keri, there is just something truly special, isn't there, about when your customers are also your owners and your managers, it changes the way you do business. And so it's very special.
You said it better than I did, Duane.
GICL, we'll call it GICL because I think most of our listeners will understand that, but GICL is dedicated to that space to help these cooperative leaders develop their voice. What gap was trying to be filled by GICL when your predecessors created it, and where do you see the gap today?
The gap was this was going back to the 1960s, and the gentleman's name is Howard Cowden. He had a hand in the building of MFA Incorporated, a cooperative in Central Missouri. And he also had a hand in founding Farmland Industries. Many people will recognize that name. Cowden recognized that there was something unique about the cooperative model and different in how agribusiness leaders approach that, how staff leaders, the challenges that they encountered. There was something different about leading a cooperative. We don't know, but I don't think he envisioned the challenges in the boardroom. He envisioned the agribusiness leadership challenges from a staff perspective. And so he went to the dean of the College of Ag at the University of Missouri and said, we need to do something to provide. He envisioned this mind stretching exercise, provide training and insights and collaboration among key employee leaders of co-ops to make sure that they're prepared for the challenges that naturally come with a cooperative business. So it started back in the 1960s. GICL's first program was offered in 1972. So finally got things established and running in 1972. And it was primarily education to employees of cooperatives, ag co-ops. Yeah. Today, that continues, and we've expanded that. My predecessor, Mike Cook, ran GICL for 35 years and grew it he's well known as he's a giant in the space. I hope to continue and build on that tradition.
And so let's get into the work you're doing now then. So when you think about cooperative boards, what's the most important thing that cooperative boards need to understand about governance right now that many of them are still missing?
That is a big question. Yeah. If I think about thinking about the boards, I feel like we're in this transition period, and the transition and the work that I'm doing is helping boards realize how the mindset need to transition from a mindset of we run the co-op to we're here to truly govern. And what does it mean to govern? And it's establishing strategic intent. It's thinking about how do we keep this business viable for the next 50 or 100 years? Many are 50 or 100 years old. And so that role of the director inside the cooperative, it doesn't just today change. It's not changing because of today, but it's been shifting over time. And I think what we really need is an understanding from our membership that when we're electing directors, we need directors who can think big picture, who can think strategically, who can operate well in that in a team environment. So I think what we need inside the boardroom is shifting as a result. But to answer maybe your question more directly, we have to commit to more education and perspective building and training inside our governance and thoughtfulness about recruiting and how we recruit for leaders that are prepared to be inside these boardrooms of what are massive companies. The stakes are massive.
And Keri, interesting question there when you talk about recruiting new directors. And one of the things that most of the cooperatives right now are looking to do is to bring younger farmers into the boardroom. But you also talked about having that broad perspective and strategic mindset. And oftentimes that comes to people from years of experience and doing a number of different things in their life, whether it be on the farm or working on smaller cooperative boards or being volunteers at various entities. How do you balance those two things of bringing those younger, more progressive, potentially farmers into the boardroom to get that diverse voice while maintaining the quality of that perspective that those board members need?
What you're talking about there is the balance between fresh perspectives and institutional knowledge about not only how we as a board work, but what we've done in the past, maybe mistakes we've made in the past, how the board works with the management team. That is a question that every board that I'm working with is asking that. And our boards today are getting some criticism, and some of it's earned, but for seats not turning over fast enough. Or you might hear it that, does the boardroom today, said differently, does the boardroom today reflect the past, the present, and the future of the cooperative's membership base? I think there was a point in time, and it's changing now, where maybe we swung too much to having past perspectives, like farmer members in the boardroom who may not be farming more than the next 10 years. I see that changing, but that has to be a purposeful conversation inside the board. How do we balance that? How do we need to balance having the institutional knowledge from our directors and the fresh perspectives from who will be eventually our big members of the future, like our important members of the future, not necessarily big, but who are going to be the members for this co-op's future, to which our paths are tied, how we go into the future is tied. And so How do they balance that? That has to be a conversation inside the boardroom. And the answer is going to be different for every cooperative.
Yeah, one of the things I think I heard you say there is that maybe not every board member needs to have all the perspectives, but you're thinking it's like when you build a team, you want to make sure that you have the various parts of each board member bring something to the table so that you're not trying to fit a resume for every board member, but each one has their own part to build. You're thinking about the team, not the individual.
Yeah, it is. You need diversity of perspectives, and we've had lots of conversations about how you achieve diversity of perspectives, and there's a number of ways to do that. One important thing is to have the conversation in the boardroom about what do we need for this board to be effective? What's a term you'll hear used is what's the right mix of directors? And what they're talking about there is what's the right mix of perspectives, backgrounds, experiences, skills, all of that kind of rolls up into creating a better board.
And even on these national cooperatives or the very large ones, what part of the country do you farm it? And to get those regional perspectives as well.
Yes.
Let me shift just a little bit here. When you think about boards today, what's the biggest gap between what boards are being asked to do and how they're prepared to do it?
The biggest, governance gap that I see, and I'll start with where I think it stems from. I think directors, and I know I can sympathize with this, feel a tension and a desire to understand everything about the co-op's business, right down to the financials. They feel unprepared. Some feel very unprepared, for example, if they don't understand at an intimate level how we do our business, the financials, where the risks are coming from. And so I feel like the gap is trying to move directors from understanding, yes, you have the right to understand all those minutia details. And for some, for some questions that we're contemplating or some discussions we're having inside the boardroom, maybe we need to do a deeper dive on financials or on this feed mill or on how our energy sector works. But the gap comes in getting directors to understand that they don't need to be experts in finance. They don't need to be experts in energy markets. They need to rely on their CEO and their team to do that, the staff team to do that. But they need to understand enough to be true strategic partners and thinking about where do we head and what do our members value. I think that's the biggest gap, is trying to get that mindset shift change from I have to know everything to what do I need to know to ask the right questions inside the boardroom, to ask questions about risk, to ask questions about growth and how this affects our membership. So that would be the gap in understanding or desire that I see in boards, is trying to help them move along that and release some of that tension that you don't have to be the expert in these things. How do you rely on the CEO and their team to be the experts and inform you in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, Keri, I guess it probably takes a little bit of time for a new board member to realize that it's not a dozen or 20 or 60 CEOs sitting around the board table, that their job is to be a board member and the CEO is to be the CEO and the CFO, et cetera. And so it probably takes a little bit of time for them to adjust to that mindset.
It does. And some of that is inherited from because I think our members believe, so our members who are electing the directors believe that the directors run the co-op. I think that's a mentality that sticks with us. So a new director gets inside the boardroom, elected there by their peers, and they believe that their job is to make those kinds of operational decisions when really that's really not their job.
Yeah.
Not the best use of their time.
You don't want the board members setting the price of fertilizer or the grain price they're paying or those types of things. Yeah, those are better left to management. Yes.
Yes.
So the cooperative model is built, though, on this idea of democratic governance. Most cooperatives are one member, one vote. There's some unusual setups out there, but how does that leadership development, how does that accomplish compared to training a conventional corporate board where an activist investor may control 45% of the board votes or those types of things?
You said it's quite a bit different. We have a system in most cases where it's one member, one vote. And so a director gets elected because they meet the qualification of being a member. And we don't have other formalized, system-wide formalized qualifications for being a director. And I'm not arguing that we should. What we're missing, I think, that's different from publicly traded companies and these corporations where inside the boardroom are the biggest investors. I don't think that's the right way to think about our boardroom either. So I'm not suggesting we go there. But I do think we have to give a lot more thought to how we're identifying directors for their perspective. So what can they bring into the boardroom? And that has to, it's a process, it's a loop. I'm thinking about the process in my head. It really starts with a board assessment and understanding what do we need inside this boardroom, where are our gaps, what would strengthen us, and then recruiting in a way that makes sense. But you still have to honor that we need the perspectives from the members, and the members vote and elect the directors in. So it's different in that most boardrooms that I look at, it's not the largest producers who are members of the co-op inside the boardroom. You have that diversity. Whereas in a corporate board, they're purposely selected not only for their skin in the game, how much stock they own, and their influence in the industry, but they're purposely selected for their expertise in the businesses that this company is in. And that's not what we have in cooperatives. That's actually not what we need. That's not what makes for great governance. It's the diversity.
When farmer directors have been through training programs, they're well prepared, well developed, does that improve the farmer voice? Does it carry more weight when that happens inside the cooperative and frankly, even across the broader industry?
The director who has more training, and hopefully this training helps instill in them that, it does strengthen the member voice. And it strengthens it in a way that it sounds a bit anomalous, but it strengthens the membership's voice collectively. The best directors enter the boardroom and know that they're elected maybe from a certain part of the membership. Maybe it's district-based, region-based, not in every case. But they set that aside and they bring that perspective in. But when they're inside the boardroom, their job is to protect the entire membership, protect the cooperative for the members as a whole. And that's a lot of what training is focused on, is how do you do both? How do you have great governance that shepherds the success of the organization on behalf of the members, for the members, while still maintaining this important member centricity and member voice? And the governance training that we try to do tries to show how those things need to be in balance and how to move those forward together. Rather, it's not a substitute. It's not one or the other. It's not member voice or a successful business. It has to be both. And so when they're able to accomplish that, a successful cooperative means that you are strengthening the relationship between the cooperative and the members, and you're also strengthening the view of the cooperative to policymakers and to outside business partners that are looking in and trying to judge the health of the organization.
Well, Keri, that's actually a pretty good transition. I want to talk about policy, but before we do that, one of the reasons that we talk about board governance is about it's about risk management, reducing risk. And I'd like to take a moment. We're going to turn to our sponsor. We'll take a quick break.
Hey everyone, Fritz Waldorf here with Lockton's Food, Ag, and Beverage Practice. The food processing, manufacturing, and distribution industry faces a multitude of challenges, including the maintenance of food safety and quality standards, managing complex and disrupted supply chains, embracing automation, limiting food waste, and adopting sustainable practices. Lockton's Food, Ag, and Beverage team is dedicated to serving as an extension to your risk management team and your risk management initiatives. To learn more, please reach out, fwaldorf@lockton.com.
Welcome back from the break. Keri, before we broke, you had mentioned policymakers and the importance of a well-educated, well-trained director, not only representing farmers in the boardroom, but being able to represent them with policymakers. One of the things we do here at NCFC is we spend a lot of time with policymakers in Washington. What are the major things that you see that policy-wise that would be helpful for board directors to be weighing in Washington on?
I think, you will know better than I would what I'm about to say, but my perspective, I don't get involved purposely very much with policy, but when I've been able to see that interaction happening between farmer board members of a cooperative and policymakers, representatives, staffers, What always is interesting to me is just the general lack of understanding of what a cooperative is and how critical and how robust the system is and important to our rural communities. And so what I would say there, and this isn't a criticism of our representatives or our policymakers or the staff. I know they're managing a lot, but what I think where we could really help ourselves, and I know we're doing this a little bit, I wish farmers were more vocal about the impact the cooperative is making in their communities and to their own farms. And so I know we promote that, but what sure would be helpful, and maybe this is more of a policy question, if we had, and I know, Duane, your organization and CFC does this as well, but just real hard data on just how important farmer cooperatives are, the impact they're having in communities. And I guess what I would say also is that I'll put a plug in for farmers. The statistics on farmer co-op is needed. And we do that today. And I think having some more robust statistics around that to give voice to and to give credence to what farmers are saying to policymakers about the importance of this. It's not just the importance to the business. Maybe that's what's lost in talking with policymakers or maybe misunderstood. Farmers they're there representing their cooperative, but the impact is not just to the cooperative business. It's the community. It's the livelihoods of farmers. It's the ability to transition a 100-year farm to the next generation versus selling it because there's this intense pressure from the urban area or the whatever is going on with data centers as an example. And so I wish there was just a better understanding of how important they were.
That's a good plug, actually. I think a well-trained board director, one that is really well developed, is one that can sing the praises of the cooperative itself, of the value of cooperatives, of the overall reason for cooperatives to exist and why policymakers should support it. And that doesn't matter which policy issue you're dealing with. No. It's the baseline conversation of, hey, we're farmer owned, farmer governed for the benefit of the farmer, which is so different than everything else that you see. If you had 5 minutes in a room full of farmer directors, switching away from the policy space, but if you had 5 minutes in the room with board directors, what's one question you'd want them to be asking themselves or asking their management teams?
I would like them to ask themselves, the board, what are we doing to ensure that this board is prepared to lead into the future? Use the term future ready or future proofing. Management teams, CEO, executive level, CFO, COO, we've got amazing talent inside our cooperatives, and we continue to attract amazing talent inside our agricultural cooperatives. I think we will always do that. They're compelling businesses. It's compelling to be part of an agricultural cooperative. I often hear employees saying, I love working for a cooperative because I know that I'm making a difference in rural communities and to farmers' lives. And that feels like something that matches their value system often. And so that part, I think, is well cared for today, the succession planning in those top levels. What's not well cared for and not broadly enough thought about is succession planning for governance. What are we doing today to ensure not just that our architecture, our governance structure, committees, how we elect directors, who we're electing, how we're nominating them, the engagement with the membership, but are the processes the board's going through sufficient to support the staff and ensure that this business is viable as a cooperative business into the future? So I would like them to just reflect a little. I would like them to reflect and have time annually to reflect on what are we doing to ensure that this board is prepared to govern into tomorrow. And we have the right people in the room for that.
So Keri, on that thought, if a board is highly functioning, well functioning, how much of their time should be spent on the business of the co-op itself, the numbers, the sales, the purchases, whatever the co-op does, versus more internal questions like succession planning, governance, succession planning for staff, for the board itself, those types of things? How much of it should be spent on how we operate versus the actual business that they are engaged in?
I will not be pinned down on a number.
Okay.
However, I can be pinned down directionally. I think I can get this right directionally. And this is a blanket statement that may not apply to all cooperatives, but largely they should be spending less time than they think or than they're currently doing. So is it possible for the pendulum to swing too far? In other words, the board doesn't spend enough time on financial reports, enough time on business line reports. That is possible. I think, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that today. I think whatever a board is currently, if they look at it, look at your agenda, if they look at their agenda and they say, gosh, a lot of this is backward looking, that's not the problem. Is it backward looking to look forward? And if the answer to that is no, is there a way to make that forward looking? So I would say, start with 50-50. I would say if you're a co-op board and more than 50% of your meeting time and discussion and board discussion, not just management reporting, but board discussion also is spent on looking backwards without looking forwards, on operational, on details, you have to question why. Like, why was that the important discussion that we had today? And what discussion didn't we have that we could have that's maybe more important, more strategic, more eye-raising and gaze-raising, So I think we're naturally, as farmers, going to tend towards more operational reporting and want to understand the nitty-gritty details because that's what farmers do. They're really good at that in their own operations. They run them. They worry about that. We need to shift that a little bit. And it's okay to think about those things. And we have to talk about those things as part of our fiduciary responsibilities. We can't let that go. But how do we use that as a springboard to look forward, not just focus on what happened last quarter?
Yeah, that's always a good framework too. When you think about it, how much time are you spending saying, how did we do versus what are we going to do? Or I used to have a boss who framed everything as what, so what, now what? And it was what happened? Why does it matter? What are we going to do about it? And if you don't get to that last piece, you're not really providing strategic thought. You're just reacting to what happened in the past. And so that's a really important frame.
Yeah. And I would tack on to that. That is a great framing. I might steal that, Duane. Is that.
Well, I already stole it. So help yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to double steal it. If there's no so what to the, then what is it?
It's what, so what, now what?
If there's no now what to the what, so what? If there's no now what that fits in the board's role as a fiduciary, like this is too operational, it's too management level, the board really isn't going to do anything about this. You have to ask the purpose of that discussion then. If there is no so what discussion for the board to have about it, why are we focusing on the what in the boardroom?
Yeah, that's good. All right, we're getting close to the end here, Keri. We'd like to finish with some rapid fire questions. So these are very quick. Don't feel like you have to give long answers here. So first one, for a farmer who's thinking about running for their local co-op board, what's the one thing they should do first?
Go to a current director and ask what's expected. Okay. What does it mean to be a board member?
That's good. And for a co-op CEO who's listening right now, what's the one investment in director development that pays off the fastest?
It is understanding how this board works, what we expect, what engagement means inside this boardroom, and how we work together.
Keri, you missed the chance. You could have just said, write a check to Giggle.
Well,
but no, it's a good answer, but that's probably the fastest.
Invite
payoff.
me in. No.
Send your people to us. What's the most underrated thing about the co-op business model that you wish more people understood?
It's the ability to control their own destiny through the co-op by the farmers. I wish we say it's farmer-owned, farmer-controlled, that the benefits the farmers. I don't think we do a good job of explaining just what that actually means to not only the farmer, but the rural community. So I really wish people understood that more, that it actually is impactful.
Yeah, I like to tell people that farmers are the heartbeat of America, the heartbeat in the heartland, but co-ops are the backbone of rural communities, because that's really true. And so there's an opportunity there to really build out on that.
Yeah.
What gives you the most optimism about the future of farmer co-ops in America?
When I look across and I see how hard hardworking, how hard they're working to sustain the cooperative. And I look at the executives and I look at the boards. There is a genuine and deep care in these cooperatives for the membership, for the farmer. I think farmers, maybe if you're a member and have never served in governance, you might not really understand this, but that gives me a lot of hope. Like there's a lot of people inside the co-op, both in the boardroom and the employee level, who are working very hard to make sure that organization stays sustainable. And what that means is it means that there's going to be a farmer voice in that line of business in your area as a competing force and a disciplining force in the marketplace. I think that is why we have farmer co-ops. And so, but I know that is still there, and that gives me a lot of hope.
No, that's good. All right, last one. Finish this sentence. The farmer co-op director of the future is going to need to be what?
A big thinker.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you, Keri.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Duane.
This is the Cooperative Voice, brought to you by Locked In Insurance. The voices that we hear from on this show don't exist in separate lanes. Markets move policy-shaped business decisions, and both land on the desk of every CEO and every board member of every co-op in the country. That's the conversations that we're going to have here, one voice at a time. New episodes come out monthly. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, share it with your colleagues, and you can visit our website, ncfc.org, to dig deeper into the topics we've covered here today. Until next time, I'm Duane Simpson, and let's make sure our voices are heard.